Un saluto a tutti, oggi siamo con la professoressa Watson che risponderà gentilmente a qualche nostra domanda riguardo le sue attività lavorative e di ricerca. La professoressa Watson è un'autorità internazionale nel campo della biologia cellulare, in particolare è specializzata nello studio dei processi di cancerogenesi della malattia mammaria, per cui sarà un'intervista molto interessante. Thank you, Prof. Could you briefly describe what are your field of interest in cancer research?
Well, thank you. It's been my real pleasure to be here, I think, in this wonderful institution. I have learned so much in my few days here, and the range of work going on is quite spectacular. So I think it's been a real pleasure to meet everyone and to hear about the fantastic research. With regard to my own research, I'm a mammary gland biologist. I've been working in this field now for almost 30 years. I started off as a young postdoc interested in the regulation of milk protein gene expression, and I've moved on now to look at other aspects of mammary gland development, particularly growth during pregnancy, where there are lots more cells. These cells differentiate, they make the milk. It's really important for the nourishment of the offspring, but of course when that milk isn't required, these cells are actually removed by cell death. And so we've been interested for quite some time in studying the way in which these cells die and how that cell death is controlled. And for me, part of this interest is in understanding how these processes then go wrong in breast cancer. Because breast cancer is incredibly common. 1 in 8 women in Europe will get breast cancer at some point in their lives. And we really yet don't understand quite how breast cancer arises, why it's so common, and really what we can do to treat breast cancer. So I hope that my studies on the basic developmental biology will be informative for looking at breast cancer therapeutics and prevention, ideally.
I think it's a funny question, but could you describe what are the features that a young researcher must have to become a great researcher?
So, well, I've spent a lot of my career actually training young researchers, and it's one of the things I find most rewarding is training graduate students and young postdocs. And I'm been delighted to see several of my graduate students have now faculty positions in Cambridge, and they've gone on to be very successful. And I think the one thing that distinguishes successful young people is that incredible enthusiasm for the science, the real passion, wanting to know about the science, the curiosity, the complete dedication to doing good research. I think that is all that really matters. I think you don't need to be the most clever person in the world, you don't even need to be the most hard-working person in the world, but you have to really love the research and the science. And the important thing also is that you have tenacity. That's my favourite word. Because things will go wrong, things always go wrong, there are challenges along the way, and that ability to pick yourself back up from setbacks and carry on with what will see you all the way through to a successful career. It's about wanting it enough and about having that resilience. And that's the advice I would give. You can, if you want to do it, you can do it. And there's nothing to stop you doing it. And particularly to women, I would say nothing will stop you from getting to the very top if you really want it enough.
You are Vice Principal of Newman College in Cambridge. Can you describe this institution? We know that it's all-female institution, so do you think that in 2018 it makes still sense to have an all-female institution in university field?
So you mentioned I'm Vice Principal of Newman College. And this is a very interesting role. I essentially substitute for the principal, who's the head of the whole college when she's away. But I also sit on a lot of committees. I'm involved in student welfare, in academic matters, in financial matters, really all aspects to do with the college. And Newman College is very interesting. It was established in 1871, so we will have our 150th anniversary in a few years' time. And it started off as a house for women who wanted to study at Cambridge, but who were not allowed to be part of the university. It was very much a man's domain at that time. And there was a philosopher called Henry Sidgwick who rented a house, and initially there were 5 women who came and stayed in that house. And eventually it was so successful that there was a lot of fundraising carried out to then actually build a proper residence for these women. And the Newnham College then started. And it has gone on from strength to strength since then. The buildings are wonderful, designed by Basil Champney. So we have these fantastic red brick buildings built around a wonderful garden environment. And it's a very inspiring, a very safe, and a very thought-provoking environment in which to work. So Newnham still is women only, and you might ask, as you did, why is this relevant? And I guess you could say it isn't relevant anymore. Women do not have to worry about opportunities to be educated. I think there are slightly more women undergraduates at Cambridge than there are men. I think it's about 51%, 49%. And so there isn't that need to give women a place to study because they're now full members of the university. But again, you could say that women still don't have equality. For women in my position, we are still in the minority. And for students at Newnham, they can be surrounded by faculty who are all female. We have more female professors than any other college in Cambridge. Young women can look to the faculty and say, this is my inspiration. These women have succeeded, they've had careers in humanities, science, a whole range of things. And it perhaps gives them the role models that they might not see quite so extensively elsewhere. So I think you can argue for an all-women's college and you can argue against it. And I think in these days when it's very difficult to say that a place should be only for women, and you don't really want to have this gender discrimination. It may be that we will have to change in the future. But for the moment, we are quite content with being a women's college.